The next
Well, then
closest
don't
department
shop at Walmart for your clothes.
the next closest place that sells clothes in my size is, an extra 50 miles away. I'm not going to drive an extra 50 miles and waste that much more gas because then I just wasted all the money that I need to use on gas on the clothes, and now I can't drive back, so I get stuck 50 miles away. Instead, I'll just shop and buy the name brand when I've got the extra dough. Welcome, Tibbs.
Yes. Welcome. All right. Let's see. So, you got a intro ready, Mr. Cosmic, or are you just gonna wing it?
Probably just gonna wing it.
All right.
I've got 3 minutes too to figure out something.
All right. Anyways, yes, hello, and welcome to the pre-show of the Roundtable. We will begin shortly, so just stick around. I mean, you could stick around, you could lay around, you could roll around. I mean,
round, 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 round. I get around. You can get the jitterbug. I like
I
that
can
one.
sew in the round. Or
this.
knit in the round.
See, we're already in the round table discussion.
I can walk around in circles. I prefer not to, though. That makes me dizzy.
I can.
Oh, I see how it's going. I see what's going on.
Absolutely.
Oh, I just learned Power Wash is getting a Back to the Future release.
Oh.
They're going to be adding Back to the Future levels to Power Wash. I'm stoked!
Ooh.
I mean, we just recently got 3 more things to clean. There's an excavator and 2 other things. I don't remember what the 2 other things are offhand. But, so, I know we're getting a 40K release, Warhammer 40K at some time. I think they said the end of the year. And now we got Back to the Future coming as well. They haven't set a release date for it yet, but it's coming. I don't know about you, but I'm stoked. Power Wash is doing stuff, so I'm happy it wasn't just a one-off buy. Great Scott! Well, that's actually the first 2 words of the announcement. Great Scott!
I'm probably going to be washing the time machine.
The DeLorean, yes.
Yeah.
It's not a time machine, it's a DeLorean.
It is a time machine, and
It's a DeLorean.
DeLorean.
No, it's a DeLorean. They never once is it ever called a time machine, except for in the 3rd movie, because they're in 1885 and DeLorean wasn't a thing in 1885.
Still a time machine.
Yeah, but it was only called a time machine because it was 1885 and there weren't DeLoreans. Every other time it's called a DeLorean, or in the case of old Biff Tannen in 2015, a flying DeLorean. I haven't seen one of those in 30 years because he saw it in 1985.
Well, you see, technically both your arguments are valid. Because it is called a time machine, but it's also called the DeLorean.
It's mostly called the DeLorean. Even Marty calls it a DeLorean. He knows it's a machine that goes back and forth in time. And really, I don't know. I have a problem with. I mean, there are physical problems with it, but I have a problem with the going back in time. I don't think you can actually do that. It doesn't make sense because wouldn't you screw? I mean, if you change something in the past, it changes the future. But if you fix something in the future, wouldn't the past be unraveling?
You're thinking of a single timeline loop.
Well, that's because I don't think there is another timeline. I understand.
There's multi-timeline theory.
Yeah, but if you go into the past, you can make the multiple timelines by changing something in the past. But if you change something in the future, how does that alter the past? That doesn't make sense to me. Because you went forward on a timeline, but you didn't change anything before that. So, just to go into this. You
It
know,
only
if you're,
affects things if something from the future came back to the past that you prevented from going to the future.
I know that's what I'm saying. Saying I don't understand how if you go to the future, going to it back to the past, it would be better or different because you had to go further back in the past to change that to make it better. Just like Marty does when he goes back into the past, and George actually takes out Biff with a punch. I mean, it couldn't be like Marty goes, but you know going back from 2015 to 2080 to 1985, that's the part that doesn't make sense because I understand we went back to 1985, but that's because the old bit went back to 1955 to change the timeline, and they fell into the 1985 slot on a timeline scale, if you will. But it was an alternate one because of the past that old Biff had changed to the
Oh no!
young
They
Biff.
can see me! I have to stop you
Morty,
from destroying my
Morty, we're
race!
going back
In
into
the
the
future!
past.
You're
I don't know
fired!
anything about Rick and Morty, so I can't really help that. I still deal with the Back to the Future because it was much better movie series than a lot of things at the time. I can't deal with Rick and Morty. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Morty, you have to listen to me. We have to, we have to get this nuclear bomb to the President Morty. We got to get it to the president, Morty. You're gonna, they're gonna, they're gonna alter the bananas and into daiquiris and Morty, Adventures Morty.
I'm
Oh,
already
Rick,
lost.
Rick, why do we have to do this? I don't want to kill the president, Rick.
Shut up, Morty. It's all for the banana daiquiri, Morty, and Szechuan dipping sauce, Morty.
But I don't like Szechuan dipping sauce.
You have to, Morty. It's for the good of all mankind, Morty.
I'm already lost.
You have to watch the show.
Okay, so I'm gonna be lost forever. That's fine. It just never interested me. I like exploring the timeline, but yeah, I don't like having to watch a show that seems that it's made for the younger generation. For me, I prefer watching more documentary kind of
You
stuff.
say while you also watch My Little Pony.
Yeah.
It's not the same at all. Not even close.
We are talking about technically kid shows. Also, in order for this to be meeting COPA standards, I do apologize for the following phrases. Shit, cock, damn. Okay, now it's not for kids.
Fuck.
Yep.
Forgot that one.
Yeah. There. You see, now they can't say it was for kids.
Sure they can.
No.
Yours were really light though. Mine not nearly light. Because seriously, a lot. Because I mean, you think about it. Go back and watch the first Back to the Future movie. They're saying so many curse words, and it's like this is a PG rated movie. This is
Mm-hmm.
before 1980. This is before COPA standards.
I mean, for anybody who
Then-
understands the real concept at the beginning of the movie was the fact that he practically stole illegal illegal nuclear waste.
No,
Well-
he did not. He didn't steal it. The Libyans stole it. They gave it to him so he could make a bomb. So he didn't steal it. The Libyan terrorists did. Who do you think? Libyans! Oh my god, they found me.
Anyways,
I don't know how, but they found me.
it's past 6:00. Go ahead and do your intro.
Yeah, okay, so I didn't come up with that. But, welcome to the Omega Republic's first round table discussion. These are gonna be one-offs just when we have all free time to do it. Tonight's roundtable discussion looks like it's between possibly the four of us if Tibbs decides to jump in. But it's between me, your host, Cosmic Pros, Copper Cap,
Yep.
and Mountain Soul,
Hello, hello.
and maybe Tibbs. But these roundtable discussions are just to for each of us to throw in our 2 cents about it, how what we think about it, how we feel about it. And tonight's topic that we have is what is or are the best monster taming fighting series and why? In the case of series, and to make this kind of E-rated for everyone, we're just talking about some of the more commonly known series like Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Monster Rancher, Beyblade, Yokai, all that kind of stuff. And if you're not familiar with all that, that's okay. Most people are more familiar with Pokemon. I understand. We're just gonna do G1 because we don't have enough time to get into the thousand, however many there are now. Uh, Somebody correct my number if since I'm probably wrong.
There's
And
over 1,000 Pokemon now, yeah.
Okay, so if you want to get into Gen 2 to Gen 8, I think it is now, however many gens there are, Sword, Shield, Diamond, Pearl, whatever, um, you can, but we're just going to deal with the first 151. That's from Bulbasaur to Mew. And we're just going to kind of get in and tell us which one is or which ones are the best and why. So I'm going to actually throw it over to Mountain first. Which ones or which one is, which ones are the best and why? 2 cents.
And we're talking about between which
Any of
of
them.
the...
I mean, if you want to do Pokemon, you want to do Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Monster Rancher, all of them. Just throw them all in one big pot and stir.
Okay. Well, I have very limited knowledge too much outside of Pokemon, Digimon, and Yu-Gi-Oh.
Okay.
I've only really seen the anime for the Yu-Gi-Oh and the um Digimon.
Okay.
So I'm going to say for great anime, Digimon, because what I've heard from the community, Digimon games actually suck. But what holds them together is the anime and
Right.
makes a lot of people just really, really bond with the characters. Pokemon as an anime is very repetitive. And then Yu-Gi-Oh!
What the fuck?
repetitive.
Yes.
I can attest to that. It is very repetitive. Please continue.
Um, Yu-Gi-Oh! It has a good storyline, but it does sort of drag on. So
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say for anime sake that uh Digimon would probably win out.
And where would Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh fall at 2 and 3?
Um, in my opinion, Yu-Gi-Oh would be 2 and Pokemon would be 3.
Okay. All right. I'll pass it over to you next, Copper. I guess I'll kind of round it out.
Sure. So, in the basis between I mean, we've all seen Pokemon if we lived through the early 2000s. We've all experienced Pokemon in multiple generations. But I mean, if we narrowed it down to just G1 and G2, I mean, Pokemon had, a pretty decent storyline. We had multiple movies, multiple characters. Uh, we mostly, I mean, bonded with the Ash character, the Pikachu character, and we got to know a little bit about their story and how they grew together and how they became, strong friends by the end of the first journey, if you will. But then we get over to shows like Monster Rancher. Now, Monster Rancher, it's similar, but it's got a completely different kind of setup in the storyline. Because instead of you being in a more realistic world where we have monsters that kind of intertwine with human relations, we go into Monster Rancher where we have monsters that have their own world. So we get into that place and I apologize. I'm going to try to make this as quickly as possible because I'm going to try to break it down which one what I like the most. With Monster Rancher, yeah, we have this world that's completely molded around monsters, and this human is thrown into it, and he has to help them figure out what to do. Now, the monster characters in Monster Rancher, they have abilities and powers, and as they, defeat more enemies, they're able to grow and gain more ability and able to use different attacks and whatnot. So, I mean, by the time we get to the end of the story, we feel as though, the characters have grown stronger, and the human character in that has also bonded with them and made his place in the world known. So now we get over to something like Digimon. Digimon is a blend of Monster Rancher and Pokemon, in my opinion, because we have kids that are thrown into the monster world, but we still have them interacting in the real world. Monster Rancher, we don't have a lot of that until we get into the second season. So, with Pokemon, with Digimon, I'm trying not to get too far off track here. With Digimon, we have this blend, and we have these things called, these card scanner things. I forget what the actual term of them is. It's been a while since I've watched Digimon. I tried to catch up on a little bit. I already forgot some of the terminology. So we have these kind of pocket monster card reader things that allow them to keep track of the humans, to keep track of their monster friends' abilities, health, upgrades, etc. Throughout the storyline, we see them bonding with their characters, going through their own individual conflicts. Sometimes the multiple humans and multiple monsters stay in a group. Sometimes they split up and go on with their different storylines. In the end, they face off against some incredible evil, similar to Monster Rancher, and they're able to eventually overcome it. Between these three series, we have Monster Rancher and Digimon that faces off against an immense evil and beats it, where we have in Pokemon's original TV series, the first journey is just merely Ash and Pikachu getting to the Pokemon League and, trying to defeat their opponents, losing, but then, learning lessons from it. Monster Rancher has that more. Monster Rancher and Digimon have this more like it's a struggle for life.
And with the struggle with life idea, in Digimon, in different seasons, there are actual characters that die and just don't come back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty dark for a kids' show. But I think I kind of liked, when I watched them, I liked that sort of dark concept because it made me feel a deeper connection to what the characters are feeling. They don't have a main character syndrome where they can't die or those around them that they care about can't die.
This is true. Now, Pokemon has they have talks of characters that have died in the past. The closest thing we had to a death in the first journey was, of course, when they talk about Brock's family and how Brock's mother had passed away and left him alone to kind of help his other brothers and sisters. His dad, as the story goes, comes back to watch after them so Brock can go off with Ash. The other storylines, of course, in Digimon there are several characters who only have like single family homes. And in Monster Rancher, I think, if I remember right, it was he had a stay-at-home mother, but a hardworking father who was never around. If I remember that correctly, I do apologize. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Um, but in terms of actual death scenes, the only time that we get like a really, really, really close death scene in Pokemon isn't until the Mewtwo movie, where Ash is, caught in the blast between Mew and Mewtwo. I
And
mean,
turns to stone.
yeah. I mean, somehow, yada yada, the magic of Pokemon Tears brings him back, but, that's never really fully explained.
Kids movie. That's why.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we're focused on just these three series, I would have to say that I would hold Monster Rancher higher up. Be it it's a shorter series, but it holds true to its morals, I think, more than what Pokemon. Pokemon is just a shiny, they hold shiny things in front of you. That's why they have to introduce new characters every episode.
So ranking 1, 2, 3.
Uh, Monster Rancher 1, uh, Pokemon 2, and then Digimon 3. I never really got into Digimon that much. So that is where I stand. I'll throw it over to Cosmic.
All right. Well, I've got, just to cut to that chase part of it, the same ranking as you, Copper. Monster Rancher is number 1. Pokemon is number 2. Digimon is number 3. Uh, but I'll start from the bottom and work up. With Digimon, I do have to hold true to what Mount Soul said. Characters die and don't come back. It's like, this is a kid show that was made in the late '90s. This is not, people in a kid show should not die like that. Unfortunate as it is. So I mean, when I was thinking, when I was watching this, I'm like, this is like super dark, and I don't know how kids made it through this. I feel that all the emo and goth kids that I knew in high school watched this show when they were kids. And that's what made them so. Uh, it's really sad. I don't I don't approve of that for kid shows, but I thought, why couldn't they do something like they did with Yu-Gi-Oh, where his like father's trapped in crystal or something, or pull a Zelda where she's trapped by some evil dark wizard from the desert kind of guy. Why don't you do something like that where they're not dead but they're in mortal peril
I
instead of
think
being.
I think each of these are aimed at a different demographic though. Pokemon is pretty young, so that's why it's very tame with its story. It's made for what, 5 to 10 or 5 to 15, something
Mm-hmm.
like that. While Digimon is made more for young teens like 11, 12 to let's say 17.
Well, I was that age when Digimon came out. I was when it came to America, I should say. When it started first showing, I was 10, going on 11, 12. But I still thought that's still kind of dark because I thought there's probably kids younger than me watching this. I didn't do I once again I didn't watch a whole lot of Digimon because I was more enthralled with playing video games than actually watching TV, just the way it was. But I still thought that was kind of dark, even for a early preteen to teen kind of show. I still thought that was kind of getting into darker, which late as time went on, it didn't bother me as much just because I got an early dose of it. But I just thought it was kind of dark at that. So that's kind of why, if we're going to go through these three, I have Digimon down there. Yu-Gi-Oh might be a close tie with third, so it may switch between Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh at third and four. Um, Most of the other ones that are kind of in this that have any kind of animal taming, battling kind of series. Are really kind of going down the list. It's all going to fall behind those. And I know Yu-Gi-Oh really doesn't have animal taming, but it's a card battling game, so you do have some animals, but you've got also things like the Dark Wizard, which is clearly not or Dark Magician, which is clearly not an animal, but kind of the battling series goes in there. So going up to number two, Pokemon ruled my entire, practically my entire middle school life. I entered middle school in 1999, and I got a Game Boy Color in 1999, and I got a Pokemon Yellow in 1999. Pokemon ruled practically my entire middle school life, from fourth grade to eighth grade. I I, I don't know. It was probably the most influential of all. But animal catching, taming, battling, everything. I think anybody who's even gotten close to that knows, of Ash and Pikachu, and although that may not exist anymore, sad, but I think that everybody's at least either seen the game. I know a lot of people have played the games, especially when Pokemon Go released. I know people who still play Pokemon Go, although it's that old. Um, and I tell you, if I still had a Game Boy and the games, I'd be playing those games nonstop until I actually caught them all. Um, which is a very difficult thing to do. I'd need at least two Game Boys and a copy of at least every game because certain games can't find that Pokemon because it doesn't exist on that version, which was just a way to make more money. Oh, I hated that. But keep on going. Um, so Pokemon had the very, I mean, there aren't any real truthful deaths spreading from Digimon I could think of. I mean, Ash's father is never really mentioned much. I believe the in final story is that he went off on his own Pokemon adventure and was never heard from again, and that's fine. But if not even counting in the movie deaths that we had, I don't think there's any actual death of anybody in the show, which is okay. I mean, it makes it much more kid friendly and rated E for everyone. But it like Phil said, it was a super repetitive show. It's like, oh look, a Pokemon, I'm gonna try and catch it and either pass or fail. Episode 2, Pokemon, I'm gonna try and catch it, pass or fail. Pokemon, I'm gonna try and catch it, pass or fail. And unfortunately, it was just filtered in with little pieces and the filler episodes. Like we're walking through a forest, the entire episode. Team Rocket comes, we foil Team Rocket, they're blasting off again. End of episode. Or, hey, I came here to battle. They don't really battle me. Team Rocket comes in, I foil Team Rocket, I get the badge because I didn't battle my monsters at all, but I saved the place from Team Rocket who blasted off again. End of the episode. I'm thinking, this is really a lousy thing about fighting Pokemon because it never happens in a gym where it's supposed to happen. It just happens out in the wilderness, and it's like, come on, dude, catch a real Pokemon for once. Because I'm sorry, Caterpie is just an evolution of Pokemon. It is not a real Pokemon until it becomes a Butterfree. Same thing with Weedle becoming Beedrill. It's not catching a Caterpie is no fun. It's like it takes what 70 levels for it to become a Butterfree, or that's what it seems. The show does it much more quickly, but and that's what saved the show there for me because I'm like, dang it, because I played the game enough. I'm like, dang it, it's gonna be like 20 episodes before Caterpie becomes a freaking Butterfree, and it took like 3 episodes. I was like, thank goodness. But that Metapod episode, harden, harden harder, keep hardening. It's like, yeah, Misty and Pikachu have got the right idea, just to sit there and bask in the sun.
It's a very suggestive scene, I'll say that much.
Okay, you just took it to a different. Okay, you you're taking a way different look at the word. Anyway, break off of
And you
that.
didn't? You've never thought that, huh?
No, because I'm thinking. See, it's Pokemon. I'm like 9 or 10. I'm not thinking of that immediately. No. Seriously, it's been a while since I watched Pokemon, but I remember that bug catcher episode. So
Oy.
I remember that episode. It's an old episode, but yeah, I remember that episode. Oh, the great days of watching things on a massively big TV. Um, with a cathode ray tube. Anyway, but like Soul said, very repetitive. I think the thing that really saved the anime may have been just how often they could change gens, and of course the video games that also saved the anime and kept everything connected. That was always fun, but I don't know exactly where, but I think with some of the most latest iterations like Sword and Shield and whatever was before that, Diamond and Pearl, that's kind of where things started getting very convoluted. The show was going on, and there's been about next to Ash, there's been about 12 other characters that joined him on his journey. I thought it would have been better if it just had stayed Brock and Misty. But once again, I mean, Misty only stays with him because she never got her bike back. Um, that was the whole reason she followed him in the first place. But she got like the best and I don't know why did they bring in a Gen 2 Pokemon before Gen 2 even began. Togepi is Gen 2. Togepi's never been one of the original 151. But they added Togepi in Gen 2, and I thought, why is Togepi in the Gen 1 show? I could never figure that one out. But to kind of bring all this to a point, the show had a lot of good learning kind of stuff. It was good for kids who just needed to drain their energy while watching TV and eat Cheez-Its while it's going on, and snack cakes and whatnot. But really repetitive show, but good way to spend a good way to waste a few hours if you got nothing else better to do, which is hard to do nowadays. But getting on to number one, Monster Rancher. I saw Monster Rancher for the first time 1999, practically when it came out, because I thought, oh, Monster Rancher, this sounds interesting. It was not what I expected at all. You've got Genki, the person in the real world, our world, if you will, who is once again kind of having the Digimon feel in this is, playing a game that's got monsters that battle it out against other monsters, much like a Pokemon game would be. So when I saw this kind of combined the two things that I was into: animal catching slash taming, battling monsters, fights, because I was good at those games and always have been, still, and not too bad. Except for Punch Out, I could never beat Bald Bull. Um, but he gets hit. He gets a special disc, if you will, in the mail, and is transported into the Monster Rancher world and meets Holly and her trusty monster sidekick Suezo eyeball thing. I don't. I mean, I like that too. That they didn't. I mean, it was the same thing with Pokemon. They never named their Pokemon something different than what it actually was. It was a Pikachu. It was a Caterpie. It was a Butterfree. I could never figure out why the game allows you to name your Pokemon. I always hated that. But I mean, in Monster Rancher, there are some names for certain characters, You got Tiger, who's Tiger of the Wind, although it's a dog, which also always confused me. Like, that's not a tiger. Tiger's a big cat. That is definitely a dog. But you got that. One of the golems who's got a darker blue color. It's big blue. Uh, Tiger's brothers, Gray Wolf, and that kind of thing. So, but I enjoyed not only that, because I mean, you may say there's no humans in there, but there's a bunch of humans. It's just they're all under the rule of Holly's evil father, the evil Moo, who we actually learn about later as the series goes on, and all that stuff. And it's interesting. But I liked that more of it was focused on Genki, Holly, and their friends that they meet along the way, much like a Ash, Misty, and Brock, and their friends they meet along the way. I really liked it though because it was just I don't know. There was for me it was not as oh we found a disc, let's make a new friend every episode. Every episode they were looking for a disc, hoping it was the Phoenix, who if you know anything about Phoenixes, they're supposed to have magical superpowers, and this Phoenix was supposed to destroy the evil Moo and make all the baddies, monsters who were bad, goodies, bad good, which was and bring all the monsters who had died, which was another interesting thing. But how they died was not like brutal or anything. They just fell to the ground, defeated, and became a mystery disc that was held up by vines and whatnot. And I thought that was interesting how that worked. See, it seemed a lot like feigning in the Pokemon video games. Um, and I thought it was just, that was a good way, I think, to keep it a kids show. And it's like, oh, they didn't die; they're just a mystery disc, so they just got to be revived. Which, happened at the mini shrines that we never get to see many of in the show itself. They just kind of happened to be around. But at the same time, I thought just how it wasn't so repetitive. It wasn't as repetitive as other things. They'd get the towns and there'd be things to do like the tournament between different people's monsters and Tiger and Hare and how they hate how to me they seem kind of like a oh just they hate each other but they're really actually good friends and in deep in the heart and just how every character that's besides Holly and Genki how every character in there had like a certain part of this five-sided shape and how they all were something. Big, Golem's the muscle, but he really hates to fight and he's got a really gentle heart. Suezo is got he's got a big mouth, but he's not really much of a fighter as it is. Tiger just is a fighter. He's the truthful one who will come up to anything and fight anything he can. Then Hare is he's really also kind of a fighter, but he's also kind of cocky and he's got a little bit of a what is it? Cunning, I would say. He likes to be able to snipe the other player out. And then Mochi is Mochi, and I don't know what I have to say about Mochi. He's like he's not the trump card, but he's like the magic card. He's the one you don't never see coming, but he's got a lot of heart and he knows what to do and he'll do what he has to when he has to. So just with Monster Rancher being more varied than Pokemon, it put it above that instead of it being so monotonous and the same thing, which it has a lot of that, but it has more variety and a lot less monsters to try and remember than Pokemon ever did. I can name all 151 after that. I'm going to have problems. But that's kind of where I place it. Monster Rancher varied, not too many things to have to remember. Pokemon, too much to remember and kind of monotonous in the show. And Digimon, kind of death, even if it is for preteens, early teens, middling teens. still, I figure that when that came to America, most of those shows that were like Digimon or Pokemon or Monster Rancher, most of those weren't labeled towards. Most of those when they came to the U.S. were hitting people before they hit that 11, 12, 13 plus range. Most of them were hitting people like me and people younger than me at 10, 9, 8. So that's why I sit Monster Rancher at 1, Pokemon at 2, Yu-Gi-Oh! And uh, Digimon and things like that at 3 and 4 and so on.
All right. Well, we are out of time for the day. Uh, Cosmic, we thank you for choosing the today's discussion for our first round table. We thank you, Soul, for also joining us today.
Yeah.
Now, for next round table, uh, Cosmic can choose to either lead it again or lay it over to somebody else.
I'll let this one go, and anybody who wants to choose 1, 2, 3 topics at a max, go ahead. I'm not going to pick who it is. Just anybody who wants to lead a discussion on something of 1, 2, or 3 topics, go ahead and I'll be there and join you.
I guess I could do it. So,
Whoever wants to.
all right. I have, since we did pretty much just one topic here, I think I will also pick just the one topic. It will be announced next time, of course, because I need to think about this just a little bit. I did not have one prepared. But
All right.
I will lead next week's discussion, and I'll have some topics picked out. So, for now, we thank you once again for joining us here on the Omega Republic, and for joining us here on our first roundtable discussion. Hopefully, maybe we can keep these two weekly, keep them short, sweet, to the point, and as always, you're welcome to chime in whenever you want. The viewers out there, of course. Uh, so, as we say good night to you and have a happy weekend, I am once again Coppercap.
I am Mountain Soul.